Now, this bill, the way I understand it, is this is going to be privately owned property. Current dormitories that are built and owned by the University of Georgia or any educational facility are already exempt. That's not a question. Take Cresswell or Brumby, all those dorms are owned by UGA. They're exempt from taxation simply because the university owns them. It's an educational facility, and under the law, they're already exempt. This bill is going to exempt privately owned property that is actually built on university property. This gives them the ability to contract with a private developer. He comes in and he builds a dormitory or a parking deck or a parking lot, and that private owner is going to get the same tax exemption as if the property was owned by the University of Georgia or the Board of Regents. It doesn't say that this has to be student housing parking. It just says housing or parking lot or parking held by a private party. It could be private parking anywhere. I'll tell you who the benefactor is. The benefactor is the private ownership, the private partner or the private company that comes in and builds this, because they're going to get a tax break, a significant break, if you think about the cost of these facilities. Well, what you're doing by passing this piece of legislation is giving that private corporation a lower balance sheet. In my opinion, that creates an unfair playing field for all the other private developers outside of university property who are really targeting that same market. If this guy gets a tax break that they don't get, their operating cost margins change. I think the way it was worded on the ballot was somewhat misleading. If you read this, it says shall continue to be exempt. Well, these properties are not exempt now. As if you're saying that by allowing people to come in and build on university property, the university property is not going to be exempt anymore. That's not what this piece of legislation does. It actually gives that private property owner the same exemption that the University of Georgia or the Board of Regents already gets. This piece of property being exempt, it transfers the burden of property taxation to those properties that are not exempt. And unfortunately, that 73% of the voters who voted for this are probably property owners who are paying taxes. And they didn't realize that by exempting this, all they're really doing is increasing their own burden.